Worldwide markets this week, education stock highlights from Stadio, ADvTech and Curro, Rhodium and copper on the move. Remgro, that discount just carries on getting bigger, and BYD battery tech. This is Worldwide Markets episode 624 for 26 March. I'm recording it late Tuesday morning. I am, of course, Simon Brown. Worldwide Markets powered by Standard Bank Global Markets and Shift, the global money app, your go-to for travel, shopping, payments, and investments in the palm of your hand, all at the cheapest forex rates. Let's get into what's happening out there. I want to start with the education stocks. We had Curro results out a couple of weeks ago. They were light. They're having to write down some buildings. Their learner numbers were essentially flat. And then Monday this week, we got ADvTech and Stadio, and their numbers are a whole different game. Let's start with Stadio. So Stadio is the distance education. So mostly, and then they've got some universities, but they are tertiary. They don't do sort of school or preschool or any of that sort of information. The numbers were really, really good. Double digits across the board. They're seeing learner growth. They've got some 50,000 learners. They really play in a hot space. And what I mean by a hot space is that we get the news every single year. We've got a whole lot of matriculants who get university entrances, and there's just not enough seats at those universities. Many would then traditionally perhaps turn to UNISA, but there's a fair bit of shambles happening in UNISA. So some will then go to the ADvTech products, and many, of course, are also now going to the Stadio products. The growth opportunity is humongous. The fact that there's not enough space at universities, the fact that UNISA is struggling, the fact that people want to get that education, and the distance part is important. A big cost of coming to WITS or UCT or UKZN or whichever university it might be is just having to be in the area. It's fine if you live in Joburg, you can stay with your parents. But if not, it adds significant expense to the tertiary education experience, and Stadio solves that with distance learning. Strong cash coming through from them. We're seeing that the PE is almost 24. XP Polite can call it almost 23. We've got a bit of an up at the moment. Its price to book is 3.1. Its dividend yield is 1.4. This is not a cheap stock, not by any stretch of imagination. And I think that is important. If we look at, in a moment, we'll have a look at Curro. ADvTech, and you'll see what I mean by that. The chart is looking great. It had a bit of a run-up. It's come back. There was a bit of a seller there, seemingly lurking at just under the 7 Rand level. That seller's now faded away or moved up to a higher price. This is I was on Stockwatch with Alex Dace on Monday evening, and he was talking around, this is a bottom draw stock. The prospects of growth that they can do going forward. Adding new students, there's a cost, right? The cost of acquisition of that student. But once you've added it, you're in business, and that student is a low-cost student. You don't have to have expensive universities and the like. Another big opportunity for them is to get being able to issue to get university status and being able to issue degrees. The other, of course, is ADvTech. ADvTech is the one I have held for ever and a day. This is one of my very long-term holdings. There's what I'm looking for. ADvTech, the PE is markedly lower. For some reason, I don't have a PE on here. Let's call it around 18. So it is a lower PE, but that's still expensive. I mean, ADvTech's been on a fair bit of a tear recently. Price to book is cheaper. Again, that is a higher level for them. 2.8. They haven't been back there since around 2018, and the PE as well. So ADvTech is probably the cheaper of the two, and it is different, right? So what have we got with ADvTech? We've got the tertiary, absolutely we have. We've also then got schools, and again, they saw increases. Their increases were mid-single digit, not as strong as the Stadio numbers. The chart's been looking great, a bit of a pullback down at 31 after all-time highs. Back when were those all-time highs? First week of Jan, getting to all-time highs. 35.64 was the high there. Bit of a pullback. Stronger dividend yield from ADvTech at around 3.5%. They've also got tertiary, which does great. They've also got the schools division, which is doing good. Now, Curro's at the lower end cost part of schools. ADvTech is at the higher end. Your Trinity College, your Crawford and stuff. These are not cheap schools by any stretch. So what we're seeing is kind of differences between the three and then overlap in that tertiary. ADvTech's also got East Africa, which was up some 40% off a low base, but I think important that they look further into the continent and that they do it carefully and slowly. We know what can go very, very wrong in that point. As I said, I own ADvTech. Curro, I really thought was a disappointment. That didn't thrill me in the least. And is it issues internal to Curro? Is it that the consumer is struggling and it's harder at the lower end of the consumer space than it is perhaps at the middle and upper, which would be more the ADvTech? But of the three, I think it's Stadio and ADvTech. Stadio more expensive, but probably got better growth prospects. As I was saying, Alex Day says, buy it, put it in your bottom drawer. He's a smart chap. He knows what he's talking about. If I can get some weakness, I'm going to start looking to build some position in Stadio. Otherwise, for now, I will keep happy with my ADvTech. It's just parents are going to spend on education if they can. The government schools are struggling in terms of funding. They're struggling in terms of numbers that they can take, and private education is definitely a space. If we look locally, private education in South Africa is way below numbers in sort of middle to developed economies. So I think there's a ton of space still coming there for growth, and I think we're going to continue to see it in this sector. One I really, really like. We've got an event on Monday evening, 31 March. It is our Power Hour for March, presented by me. We're going to be looking at offshore investing, and we're going to be looking at US tax. We're going to be looking at Irish domiciled ETFs. We'll look at local. For example, you can now buy a whole range of stocks, including ASML, Palantir, and others, on the JSE via the FNB ETN note program. You can, of course, buy them offshore in Shift and the like. You can also get local ETFs, you get offshore. We're going to go into all of that, and importantly, we're going to look at tax. We're also going to look at what do you do with the money coming back, etc. But everyone says, what do you want? You want to live in South Africa but earn dollars. Some people manage to get those jobs. For the rest of us, we've got to build that dollar earning, and that comes from offshore. Booking more information either for the webcast or to attend live at the Standard Bank head office in Rosebank, Johannesburg, justonelap.com/events. I want to have a quick check-in on the Atlanta Fed. I picked it up a couple of weeks ago. I think it's worth keeping an eye on it. We won't go into lots of details. This really is a flash number. The next update is going to be Wednesday 26, which is probably when you are listening to this. The last update was March 18, so that was last week. And when I recorded last week, Tuesday, it hadn't yet come through. And it's now looking at a Q1 GDP of 1.8. Markedly better. It had been down at 2.8 or so. So certainly improving a lot in that regard. Still negative, but picking up. It's uncertainty. It's businesses cancelling. It's businesses saying we're just not sure. I've spoken around Delta Airlines and how they revised down. So Atlanta Fed certainly still negative, but equally so picking up. And that picking up part, I think, is perhaps the important bit. Let's get to some commodities, because there are two commodities that are suddenly having themselves a day in the sun. The first of that is copper. Let me share that so we can all have a look at. There it is. So the story for copper is perfectly simple. We need copper for the energy transition. We need it in electric vehicles. We need it in data centers. We need it in those fancy NVIDIA chips. Copper is needed everywhere. If we zoom out on this chart, and it goes back to, 1988, copper is now back at sort of all-time highs, just off the all-time highs from May of last year. What we're seeing is another run here in copper. The story remains the demand side. The story remains the supply challenges. Although, of course, when prices get to these levels, and here we're looking per pound, not per ton. Many of you here, copper's at 10,000. Yeah, that's per ton. $5.06 per pound. What we see is production can start doing recycling at the same time. It's not just mining. Mining has got harder, but certainly there is, I think, a lot more recycling happening at these sort of levels. Copper is a long-term cyclical trend. The question is how much recycling do we eventually see? The likes of Billiton, Anglo, Rio, all of those are going huge into copper production, trying to get as much out of the ground as possible. And that, of course, brings supply, and that then sort of puts a cap on it. I have many times in the past tried to make money off copper. I keep on getting shaken out. I get some small profits. There is the Standard Bank ETN SBCOP is the code. That, of course, is also trading incredibly well, because right now what the benefit is that the rand is 18.20 odd, and now we've got copper doing great at the same time. So really pushing that a whole lot higher. I like the copper story. At the moment, I'm playing it through BHP Group. That's how I'm getting my copper exposure, is through BHP. The other one which is moving is Rhodium, which excites everybody in the world, because Rhodium has had a very, very tough time of it. So let's zoom out, and we can see Rhodium up at $30,000 an ounce back in Feb 21. If we zoom this chart down, it's been stuck at around $4,500 per ounce. It ran up a couple of weeks ago, getting as high as 6,050. It's now trading 5,575. Certainly seeing some light there. This will help our PGM miners. They're essentially making about an extra 20-25% on their rhodium. It's not a giant part of their basket, but it can be a giant part of their profits, particularly when it was at 30,000. I don't think it's going back to 30,000. Charting Rhodium is almost impossible. I mean, this chart has largely flatlined since July of 2023. So 18 months of pretty much going sideways. Yeah, with a slight bias upwards, but you get the point of what I'm talking about. We also have the Rhodium ETN from Standard Bank, from One Invest, my bad, and it is an ETF. This has had a wild journey, but we are seeing some life happening there. It is reflecting that Rhodium price. Now, it's well down from its highs of 4,300. It's now trading at 934. Again, I don't think it's going back to those heady levels, but it's worth keeping an eye on for the PGM miners. Those are the folks who have been having a really tough time of it. If we look at the other PGMs, platinum, give me platinum, please. There we go. Platinum not doing a heck of a lot. Still stuck within that range of between sort of 850 and 1100. And palladium probably no much better off. The ranges a little wider. Here we're still stuck in the range between 800 and that caps out 1150, and then maybe a little over 12. But it will be helping, as I said, the PGM miners as Rhodium. It's adding to their money. Make no mistake about that. They are going to be happy about that extra cash that they are getting. So they will be certainly smiling a bit. We keep an eye on it. I don't think it's anything that exciting just yet. And then a really fascinating story that came out last week. Yes, it was last week. BYD. Buy Your Dreams, a massive Chinese electric car vehicle, now producing and selling more electric vehicles than anyone else in the world. They've got a sub $10,000 electric vehicle, which is why they're managing to do so incredibly well. And the cars look nice. And the Chinese cars are all big and bulky, but the BYDs, sure, they look like what the heck. They're now saying that they can give you in 5 minutes about a 400-kilometer range. So I went digging and I found this from Sherwood. And what they're looking at is the charging miles added per minute of charge. So with BYD, you get almost 50 miles with a minute of charge. This is huge. What is the big challenge with electric vehicles? I mean, there's issues around Eskom. There's issues around price, and we have insane import duties on electric vehicles, but it's range anxiety. Now, in this case, if in 5 minutes I can add 400 kilometers, I can drive to Cape Town. Quite easy. I need charging stations along the way, but it's no longer a prolonged wait to charge my vehicle. 5 minutes is how long it takes to fill up a tank of petrol, right? You want to put, 50, 80 liters. It's about 5 minutes. So BYD does 50 miles per minute of charge. General Motors, 25. I was surprised by that. Mercedes-Benz and Polestar both doing around 20. Hyundai doing 14.5. Tesla doing 13.3. BMW, 7.8. And Rivian at 7.5. This is massive for BYD. Now, this is an announcement from the company. We haven't yet seen it coming through, but it does show how they are absolutely winning in this electric car space. For example, they did their equivalent of self-driving, and they put it in all their vehicles, including their just under $10,000 vehicle. If you buy a Tesla, you want full self-driving. It's $6,000 or $8,000 as an upgrade to the vehicle. Tesla needs to refresh their brand. They need to, and they are doing. They're bringing out new, but their battery tech is what's perhaps holding them back at this particular point in time. And on the point of Tesla, some some terrifying stats behind. I have long said that CEOs or companies must broadly stay out of politics, because the problem with politics is that a certain part of the population then loves you for your political view, but the other part doesn't. I remember in the early 90s or late 90s, listed companies in the JSE would make donations to political parties. And what they always did was very carefully, they would decide, are we going to give to all the parties or whatever, but they would do it in terms of votes won at the last national election. In other words, no favoritism. They wouldn't give to one party and not the other. They gave a little bit to everybody, and they would do the weighting by the electorate. So they were supporting democracy by funding political parties, but they were staying well away from getting involved into the sort of messy part of it. So Tesla market share in Europe, and this is data from JATO, has absolutely collapsed. It was 1.6% in February 2025. That's down from 2.8% the same month in 2024. And if we look at, and that is sort of the hybrids. If we look at battery electric vehicles, Tesla's market share has dropped from 21% down to 9.6%. In Europe, this is in Europe, so it's the EU, UK, Norway, Switzerland, etc. This is registration data. Tesla is collapsing in terms of market share. Now, part of it is that BYD is being aggressive on pricing, BYD is being aggressive in Europe, and Tesla hasn't updated, but part of it has to be Elon Musk. You do not want your CEO getting involved in sort of the story of, well, let's get involved in politics. And in this case, you are offending a large part of the population, and that is never a smart idea. Worldwide markets powered by Standard Bank Global Markets and Shift, the global money app, your go-to for travel, shopping, payments, and investments in the palm of your hand, all at the cheapest Forex rates. We thank Standard Bank Global Markets and Shift for sponsoring the podcast. Absolutely, we do. Remember the live event on Monday, the 31st. It'll be 5:30, either at Standard Bank in Rosebank, it's Johannesburg, or you can catch the webcast, justonelap.com/events for more information. But we'll leave that there for now. Last point. I had forgotten my very last point. Remgro, quick update on Remgro. Results out, and actually good results from Remgro. Not bad. Nice HEPS growth. But here's the killer. The net asset value is R276.89. That is as at, when was that? That was December. That's for the period ending December. Okay, that is a nice NAV. But what is the share price? The share price is insane at this point in time. We have a share price trading 155. There is a ridiculous discount to net asset value there. Now, some of this is listed stuff, so it's really quite simple. We can say, yeah, that is a relatively fair and robust net asset value pricing. Some of it is unlisted and we have to trust them. We've also got to take off some management discount, but let's call it 275. Let's take off 20% for holding structures. That takes us down to, let's say, 220-ish. I mean, that's a 50% up from here. Now, I mean, the trick is, and I've been caught by these so many times before, but I remember in the days when Remgro used to trade at about a 16% discount to NAV. When it widened out to 25, you bought Remgro, that NAV would close and all would be good. At this point in time, it is just it's getting ridiculous. The PEs are a little bit messy here. Dividend yields a little under 2%. Forward PEs around 11. Price to book is, discount, right? Absolutely. It says 0.8 here because the results have only just come out, so we don't have a fair book number. But that discount it's just getting more and more ridiculous as time goes on. Surely there has to be some level of closing. Surely 200 Rand is a fair price. We have a hold and a sell. Target price here is 160, which is pretty much spot on where it is. I can't help thinking, surely there has to be some opportunity here in Remgro. It just looks far, far too cheap. But as I say, I don't know, we're kind of in a new world where discounts and net asset value are bigger than they would ever have been in the past. We'll leave it there. My name is Simon. We'll be back again next week. Hopefully we'll see some of you on Monday evening at Rosebank, Standard Bank head office. Parking arranged, coffee, tea, etc., etc. justonelap.com/events. Chat again next week. Look after yourself. As always, if you can, look after somebody else as well. Cheers all.